Thank you, Madam President, and may I use the opportunity to welcome you back to this august chamber. Madam President, I'm going to use this opportunity to just respond briefly to a couple of comments which have been made this afternoon by members of this chamber to address and to correct information which could otherwise provide a wrong impression of some of the material which I thought had been sufficiently put before the other house and laid before this chamber. As I have said in the other house, it is my beg your pardon, it is my constitutional function to operate as the conduit for the judiciary, and the judiciary would be the Supreme Court, the Industrial Court, and other judicial tribunals. I was taken aback earlier today when Honourable Senator Jolene John suggested that the request for the supplement of $30.3 million by the judiciary seemed to be an act of someone deliberately missing out on the previous allocations. I won't ask for particulars of that because that would be to compound the wound. It certainly could not be that the judiciary, in requesting $30.3 additional million for its budget, could have or be accused of deliberately misrepresenting its position on a previous occasion. That would not only be wrong, but the records do not bear it out. The fact of the matter is that an original sum was allocated of $134,417,800,000. That sum was deficient and only catered for the payment of salaries up to May 2020. Additional funding was required and requested in the sum of $57,583,000, and the government has agreed by this supplementary allocation to provide $30,300,000. So there has been no deliberate missing out of an allocation or a requirement to attend to the business of providing justice to the people of this country by a judiciary which is, as I said in my remarks in the other house, committed in as agile a way as it can in difficult circumstances to provide for justice in support of the rule of law of this sovereign democratic state. So I just wish to put on record that there could be no suggestion that the deliberately missing out was culpability on the part of the judiciary. That would be a grievous wound to lay at the door of the judiciary. In fact, when the report, the Standing Finance Committee report, was laid on the 24th of January 2022, the Honourable Minister of Finance, our Prime Minister today, said, with respect to the judiciary has been on a development program within the last several years, building out the new facilities, new systems, increasing the number of judicial officers and their support staff, and so on. And again, we had made an estimate at the beginning of the year as to what the judiciary would require, and again, it became apparent during the year that we would have to supplement the judiciary. So I hope that the record is clear. Honourable Independent Senator Dio Narine has questioned the allocation of $16.5 million to the Registrar General's department. And again, the fault will be all mine, but I got the impression that the Honourable Senator was questioning the proper use of the IDB loan, which had originally been taken by the Attorney General and Legal Affairs Ministry to allocate to the Registrar General's department. May I say this, Madam President? One of the first visits that I made on assuming office as Attorney General was to the Registrar General's department. And I came away vastly impressed by the work, resourcefulness, and commitment of the staff of that department. And we understand the work of that department is at the heart of so much that we as a young developing nation hold very dear. Among other things, it has to do with us being able to own a piece of land, to have a deed, and to be able to will that land to our children. I was taken to the basement of the Registrar General's department, where there is a vault where the actual deeds of title, on some of them now on special paper, are kept. And I was shown the exercise which is afoot and still afoot with the loan that has been received from the IDB. There are property deeds, books, larger in size and width than this podium at which I stand, and 8 inches to a foot in depth, that date back to the year 1700. Paper, Madam Speaker, that dates back to the year 1700. I was struck by the condition of some of those books. I was struck by the fact that they had even survived. And those are the books when the search clerks go to trace title for land that we would wish to will to our children. Those are the books which the search clerks have to thumb through, brittle, frayed, and literally disappearing in dust as they are handled to affirm our ownership of a piece of earth that we can call home. And the staff of that department are painstakingly reconstructing those books with the technology, the IT technology and equipment that has been provided to them by that IDB loan, to create digitized records that allow us with confidence to be able to say, my great-great-grandmother left me this piece of land, and here is my digital copy of my deed, and I am putting it in the will, which will go to my children and my children's children. That is just part of the exercise. The pride with which the workers of that department showed me what they were doing. There was a young man, I recall. He couldn't have been more than about 23 years of age. And he showed me how painstakingly he would place these large books to be x-rayed and filmed by the digital equipment so that the book, the 1700-year-old piece of deed paper, could be converted into a permanent record to be able to enable us to own land and to have proper title. And indeed, to be able to implement a comprehensive gender outreach campaign for data collection around women's land ownership trends, the capacity of women in this country to own land. So I'd like to reassure Senator Dionarine, and I have no doubt that her concerns are well intended, and I would like to reassure her and invite her, and I am sure that the Registrar General, Ms. Bridgewater, would welcome her to take the tour that I did, to see the work that that department is undertaking, to be reassured that the funds which were loaned by the IDB have been put to very good use, and that the supplementation which the Ministry of the Attorney General has come to Parliament to ask for approval is to continue with that work, because it is to continue into the foreseeable future. It is not an endeavor that can be accomplished overnight. And I take the opportunity here to pay tribute to all of those members of staff of that department. Madam President, another concern that was expressed here today on the question of the different allocations, and it was a question that was raised in general terms by Senator Dunarine, has to do with the number of persons. She questions what are the number of persons who are contracted on short-term employment, and she made the point that she was speaking across the board. The short-term employment applies to some aspects of those institutions for which I have constitutional responsibility, one of which is the Industrial Court. I wish to assure Senator Dunarine, the Industrial Court, an invaluable institution. When we read Dr. Zinn Henry's books and we remind ourselves, looking at Hansard, when the Industrial Stabilization Act was piloted, when the Industrial Relations Act replaced the Industrial Stabilization Act, we remind ourselves what an invaluable role the Industrial Court played from its fledgling days to the growth that it has continued to climb with in this society towards stabilizing the labor environment and providing security of tenure to workers in this country and a harmonious relationship between employers and employed. And the Industrial Court is central to that endeavor. The court has grown from a very small staff complement and has moved from managing less than 500 cases to an additional 1,000 cases plus each year. Several pieces of legislation since 1965 have been passed to bring more and more persons and institutions under the remit of the Industrial Court. The Maternity Protection legislation, the OSH Act, Minimum Wages Act, Retrenchment and Severance Benefit, a swathe of legislation. And short-term workers, Madam President, I wish to reassure Senator Dunarine, have had to be brought on to supplement the establishment temporarily because of the increase in the work of that court, particularly during the pandemic, which exacerbated the need for workers of a court which provides an essential service. And I compliment the court, and I say that the court's employment of short-term staff was necessarily the case in point, and to that extent, it is an appropriate allocation that this House is being asked to accomplish. There's a record I'd like to correct, Madam President, that has come across from the other House, and I don't wish to leave it unstated in this House, lest the record is...
46-1, can we refer to what went on in the other place, because we have been told we can't. So I would like you to guide this Honourable Senate as to whether the Attorney General can refer to matters that took place in the other place in this debate.
Attorney General, I would allow you to continue just to make your point very quickly.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I'm grateful to Senator Mark for being sufficiently astute to keep me on track. There is a sum of money that is being put about that has been spent by the Industrial Court on legal fees. This sum of money is $790,000. And I wish the record to show very clearly that that sum is not correct. The sum of money that has been expended on legal fees for a named senior counsel whose name I have got his permission to give, and he said to me, call my name, I have nothing to hide, is former Senator Mr. Russell Martineau, who was paid $168,750 by way of senior counsel retained by the Industrial Court, arrears of $84,375, and other attorneys. The total sum that was paid to Senator Martineau and his team amounts to $415,815.63, and the sum that is somehow or the other being suggested of $790,000 is simply incorrect. And I would like this record to show that for the future. Thank you very much, Madam President, and for the astuteness of Senator Mark. Senator Dayal Singh raised an interesting point when he was speaking, Madam President, that I'd like to address, and I'm grateful to Senator Dayal Singh for raising it. I hadn't intended to, but it is an opportunity for me to speak to work that is taking place. He spoke about the senior citizens fraud that is taking place in this country. Senior citizens who have spent their full lives working for this country and their families, whose pensions are being defrauded. And he asked, through the opportunity presented on this debate, for something to be done about that. And I wish to reassure Senator Dayal Singh that in the very early part of my assuming this office, Senator Cox reached out to me to ask me to have a look at the pending legislation, which is in the Chief Parliamentary Counsel's department, and it is going to be brought up shortly on the Legislative Review Committee to address that very, very grievous wrong that is being done to senior citizens being defrauded of their monthly pension checks at the end of the day. So I'm grateful to Senator Dayal Singh to have brought that up so I could put the point before this House. I promised the Leader of Government Business, Madam President, that I would be brief, and I will be brief. I say only this in closing with, of course, my gratitude to Madam President and members. For me to be speaking on the Supplemental Financial Appropriation Bill is testimony that I have a constitutional duty to discharge, because those who know me well will tell you that I am not the best at financial management in my own household. My wife looks after that. But I know terms and I know language that speaks relevantly to finance and financial management. And we have experienced it in the last 2 years of the pandemic. It's something that is called, colloquially, the guava season. This country has gone through a remarkable guava season, and I wish to close by paying tribute this evening to the Honourable Minister of Finance to have brought to this House a supplemental appropriation bill that is now demonstrating his astute management and the astute leadership of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Senator Roberts.